Welcome to the Week 18 NBA Power Rankings. Welcome to the post-NBA trade deadline Power Rankings. And welcome to the post-Super Bowl Power Rankings as well. Because if there's one thing that this year's Super Bowl showed us, it's that no matter the sport, even if it is the most important event in the history of life, it's the most watched event this year, the referees of every sport will find a way to fuck your team over. So if it takes any solace, just be glad that you're not a Philadelphia Eagles fan whose team got screwed over out of the Super Bowl because of the refs. And with that, we'll talk about these teams. Now, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit tough because at this point, I'll have to do my best to not only compensate for the level of talent of all the new players on all the new teams, but also the quality of their season up to this point, the quality of their season projected going forward, potential team chemistry issues, and overall season outlook. Good luck, me. That's why I get paid the big bucks to do this. Here we are with the first team, and they're in their own tier of just ew. Just gross. Even when you're having a competitive game against the Miami Heat, you still find a way to lose by having a blown coverage on defense, giving up an alley-oop on an out-of-bounds play, and God, why is Dyson Nix in the game? Why are 4 out of 5 players not playing the right defense, and why do the Rockets even try to play basketball? This is just a pathetic season, which is why they're not even in the tier of tank for Victor Wembanyama, because they're so bad they just deserve a tier of their own of just yikes. The rest of the teams are going to be in the tank for Victor Wembanyama tier, starting with the San Antonio Spurs, and the Spurs made some great moves at the trade deadline, as they often do. Shout out Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham as well. He's been playing pretty good basketball as of late. Overall, the team really does lack talent, experience, good players in general, and now they shipped off their starting center, so I guess, Zach Collins is going to be their starting center for the remainder of the season. Not great, but hey, they're looking to pick up a new 7'5" center out of France at the end of the season. Next team is the Detroit Pistons. They're going to be going up a spot purely because they have Bojan Bogdanovic and you don't. And even if he didn't get traded away for 2 first-round picks this year, he's still going to be a great asset, great veteran leader, and man, he just drops like 30 or 40 points a night just because he feels like it. He looks like a grandpa out there, got gray hairs, goofy-looking white guy, but man, does Bojan Bogdanovic get buckets. Next team up is going to be the Charlotte Hornets as well. Just really struggling, really sad, really pathetic season to this point. And I have nothing to say about the Charlotte Hornets because they didn't even get a first-round pick for trading away their starting center, while the San Antonio Spurs got a first and 2 seconds and another player for theirs. And they waived Reggie Jackson. So they literally traded away Mason Plumlee for nothing. Anyway, the next 2 teams on this list are part of the not your average tanking tier because these teams are in the tank, are in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, are in the rebuild process, but they're doing a little bit better than the Hornets and the Pistons and the Spurs, and of course the Rockets. Starting with the Magic, they're getting a tier jump. They're kind of in this weird section of they're not really in the what the fuck is the NBA tier. They're not really in the oh my god I'm taking for Victor Wembanyama tier. They are the 5th worst team in the NBA, but they always play good basketball. Markelle Fultz has stayed healthy for the most part. Paolo Banchero come back down to earth a little bit, but they got a good team top to bottom, just bought out Terrence Ross. Mo Bamba officially gone, so it clears up any confusion of Wendell Carter Jr. and Bol Bol and how they're going to have Mo Wagner be the backup center. All those question marks are starting to be cleared up as this team is starting to thin out the herd. Again, I wasn't a big fan of the trade because you didn't get any draft capital back for Mo Bamba, who you just re-signed in the offseason, similar to what I have issues with the Hornets and Mason Plumlee. But at the end of the day, the Magic are a team with a couple of good young assets, while the Hornets have LaMelo Ball and not much else. 23-34, pretty good season, for being completely honest, for the former #1 overall pick holding Orlando Magic. And the next team, and the only other team in this not your average tanking tier, is the Indiana Pacers, and after a late start, their tank has finally begun. Luckily, they didn't win too many games to start off the season, but they've proven that A, Tyrese Haliburton is that dude, B, Ben Mathurin rookie season is a bucket. Now just get Rick Carlisle to start this man and play him in the 4th quarter when it's a close game, and maybe you'll even win more games because I don't know what the Rick Carlisle is doing. They just refuse to play Ben Mathurin in the closing stretches of the 4th quarter. But hey, if this team gets a Victor Wembanyama on their side, they're going to be mean and menacing. And the rest of the tier is the WTF is the NBA tier because I have no idea what this season is all about. Starting with the Bulls, 26-30, just continuing to drop. I kind of thought they turned it around a little bit midway through last season. I was like, all right, they figured out some of their things going in the trade deadline. Maybe they'll pick up a piece. Maybe they get Russell Westbrook. Zach LaVine is starting to get a little bit healthier. DeMar DeRozan is going to do what he does. Patrick Williams has shown signs of improvement. Nikola Vucevic is having, honestly, one of his best years of his career. Andre Drummond is playing great every now and then. So I thought they turned the corner, and then they just lose a bunch of games. So welcome to Chicago Bulls basketball 2023. Next team up is the Toronto Raptors. And man, I really thought the Raptors were going to blow it up, but They decided not to. They're on a little bit of a win streak, so they are going to jump up 2 spots here, but they're kind of like that aging superstar quarterback that just won't retire. They're the 6th worst team in the league record-wise. Probably could have traded Pascal Siakam for 3 firsts. OG Anunoby reportedly getting 3 firsts. Fred VanVleet, you could get 1 or 2. Gary Trent Jr. could get 1. And just build around your potential superstar in Scott Barnes for the future. Instead, they traded their next year's first-round pick, which who knows how good that is going to be, for a mediocre starting center in Jakob Poeltl, who, don't get me wrong, I really like, I respect. He's a quality center, but that's not the move that's going to put your team over the top. You're struggling to get to 500 at this point. Now what? Because you have a center, a 7-footer on your team, you're all of a sudden going to make the playoffs and go on a run? Oh, Raptors, what are you doing? Next team is the Washington Wizards, going on a win streak at this point, 26-29. Not much to say about the Wizards. They didn't trade anybody. They've been playing a lot better since Rui Hachimura was gone. Maybe he was the cancer of the locker room. Who knows? Kendrick Nunn been playing pretty good basketball as well. Not a lot of expectations, though, this season for the Wizards. And next up is the Golden State Warriors, who are surprisingly jumping up a spot. I didn't realize they dropped them this far once Steph Curry went out. But hey, they're a 500 team now. And they traded away James Wiseman for an injured Gary Payton Jr. And that's about all there is to say about the development track of the Golden State Warriors, who I've been heralding for the longest time as like, oh my God, this team has a farm system in the NBA. They're doing everything correctly. They've got young guys that are going to develop into studs. They've got old guys who are going to win now, going to get you a championship, and they just have not been able to develop whatsoever. For all of Steve Kerr's pluses, everything he's done to bring this team a dynasty, multiple championships, he does not develop players great. Outside of Jordan Poole, who's been incredibly streaky, everybody else has just been part of this core that's been around since like 2015. Apologies if my voice is terrible for this recording. I'm battling a sickness right now, but the show must go on. And speaking of the show, Portland Trailblazers are 20th at 27-29. Not a lot to talk about them. They're just frustrating at this point. Really hope they would go into some direction. But they got 5 second-round picks at this year's trade deadline and gave up Josh Hart for Cam Reddish, which is, you know, an interesting trade for sure. Josh Hart horribly struggling for the Blazers, completely lost it mentally, so maybe a change of scenery is good for him. Maybe Cam Reddish, same thing. He turns into a stud. He was a former, I think, number 10 overall pick. We will see what happens if he gets unleashed by Chauncey Billups. Utah Jazz dropping down a spot, 28-30. They gave up Mike Conley. It's not the end of the world for them, but I expect them to fall into this not your average tank tier by the end of the season. They still got Lauri Markkanen. Jordan Clarkson is still crazy. Colin Sexton showing a few flashes, and Walker Kessler is that dude. I don't know how far the Jazz are going to fall. I wish they would have blown it up a little bit more, gotten a lot more back than 1 first-round pick in 2027, top 4 protected by the Lakers, but they got some of the players off the team, I guess. Lakers going to jump up a spot because holy crap, did they just swindle half of the teams of the NBA at this trade deadline. They have a new starting lineup now of D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, maybe Jared Vanderbilt, maybe Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Mo Bamba. Like, what did they do at this year's trade deadline to coerce all of these NBA GMs to just give them players for practically nothing? On top of that, if y'all remember, LeBron broke the scoring record earlier in the week. I know that's so old news. I just needed to touch on it a bit. I don't know why, but it feels like classic LeBron to pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the scoring champion, wearing his headband to hide the bald, and then his team loses embarrassingly as he sits out the final few minutes. And it feels especially LeBron to have Anthony Davis not even stand up and cheer him on. That's all I got. Y'all already seen the video where Anthony Davis just sat down and kind of watched like he was at a bus station for LeBron James making this record-breaking scoring. But man, this NBA trade deadline was incredible for the Lakers. They got a new point guard, a new shooting guard, 2 power forwards for Kendrick Nunn, Russell Westbrook, a first and 3 seconds. Like, what the actual? Next team on the list is going to be the Atlanta Hawks, 29-28. They got Sadiq Bey. Don't think he's going to be a real game changer for them. They also picked up somebody. They traded Frank Kaminsky for somebody who's not going to get any minutes. What is his name? You know what? It's not that big of a deal. The real concern and question for the Hawks is, can Trae Young get back to the Trae Young of 2 years ago, bringing them to the Eastern Conference? Now he has DeJounte Murray as his running mate. Can DeAndre Hunter remember how to play basketball? Does John Collins want to play basketball? And Clint Capella is still going to be that beast in the center. The team theoretically has all the pieces to go on a run. Just are they going to? Next is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they just played less games than everybody else. 27-28. Their games played is in the 50s while everybody's in the 60s. I just don't really know why the Thunder get so much rest. Anyway, as for the team, their record doesn't look it, but if you remember, they had a horrible start to the season. They were like 10-20 and they've just been winning more games than they lose. That dominance is starting to go away. They did trade away Mike Muscala as they were a team that could use a Jakob Poeltl in their team. They said, no, we're going to go for next season with Chet Holmgren. So this year, it's basically they're playing with house money. They win games, they lose games, doesn't matter to them. They don't need a top 5 pick anymore. What they're going to do is try to feel out the talent, make the playoffs or the play-in tournament for the first time, and just kind of see where they go from here. So just house money season for the Thunder. Next year, they might look to actually compete. Pelicans going to drop down a spot, and Zion had a setback to his injury. He's out past the All-Star break. Ooh, boy. They sure were fun when they were a healthy team. Moving on, the Nets at 14th, and they're just in a really precarious spot. So if I was reading their draft pick situation right, they don't control a single draft pick of theirs until 2028, I think, which is an absolute yikes. I mean, you look at their history. First, they get bent over by the Celtics when they tried to buy a super team with an aging Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and then they sucked for so long. They drafted the Celtics stars for them in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and then they eventually built their own young, exciting core. D'Angelo Russell, Karis LeVert, Kenny Atkinson, and then they blow that up for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and then they blow up their future for a fat James Harden, and then they blow up that for Ben Simmons, and they trade away Kyrie for Dinwiddie in a first, and lastly, they trade away Kevin Durant for some role players and 5 firsts. And besides the Kevin Durant trade, they got swindled on a lot of this, but they're in such a weird spot of they don't have superstars, but they don't have draft picks in their own, so they aren't going to be rebuilding. They are in win now mode for the next 5 years, but they're not completely devoid of talent. Spencer Dinwiddie is a pretty good player coming back to Brooklyn. He was playing damn good basketball for the Mavericks. Mikal Bridges, runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year last season. His offensive game has started to expand this season. Cam Johnson, great as well. Nick Claxton, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. They got all the players that were in win now mode for the Nets when they had Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving that was giving you buckets like Seth Curry and Patty Mills and Edmund Sumner. They did give up T.J. Warren. But they also have Cam Thomas, who has been dropping 40 points a night like it's nothing. So the Nets aren't at the bottom of the barrel. They aren't at the top. They're somewhere in this mid-range where they don't have their draft picks as well. So it's going to be a weird situation for the Nets moving forward. Next on the list, and the last of this WTF is the NBA tier, is the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I got to say, I'm really unimpressed with how this front office has been handling everything. They traded away D'Angelo Russell for Mike Conley. I think Timberwolves fans are going to find out. Mike Conley, great guy, fun player, injured a lot, doesn't really move the needle for this team. Don't know if it was worth trading D'Angelo Russell for that. Hopefully Karl Anthony Towns will be coming back for injury before the playoffs start. Even that's starting to feel like a huge question mark at this point. He seems to be sitting out as much as Lonzo Ball is. Anthony Edwards is coming to his own. He's being a gangster. Other than that, though, just don't love the talent on this team, especially when Rudy Gobert has given you 6 points in a game. And that is the final team of this tier of what the is the NBA tier. Next up is the good, not great tier. These teams are starting to build some separation for me. So there's the 500 teams, and then there's the teams that are actually competing in the playoffs, etc. Starting at the bottom with the Miami Heat. They didn't do anything at the trade deadline like they needed to. They still don't have any depth at the forward position. They struggled against some bottom 5 teams, did pick up wins against the Magic and against the Rockets. But all in all, I just don't love the direction that this team is going. Jimmy is starting to show a little wear and tear at this point. He's slowing down. He needs help, and he's just not getting it right now from Miami. Next is the New York Knicks, and honestly, all I can say for them is pray for a healthy Mitchell Robinson, because when Mitch is healthy, he anchors their defense. They play incredible basketball. When he's out, they have to make do with Isaiah Hartenstein and Jericho Sims, and it's just not enough for this porous defense because Jalen Brunson is undersized. Julius Randle decided to stop playing defense, and while Emmanuel quickly has turned his game up, he's undersized as well. They just need their defensive anchor, otherwise they're not going to go very far this season. Next on the list is the Clippers, and man, the Clippers look old. I thought they turned the corner, which is why I bumped them up so highly before. Kawhi Leonard, mostly back from injury. Paul George, mostly back from injury. Got some new players in Eric Gordon and Bones Highland. They got, in my book, the best coach currently in the NBA in Ty Lue, but they just play slow, painful offense, and they don't take about half the game seriously, and I'm just not sure what to do about this team. They lack youth. They lack athleticism. They're still talented, don't get me wrong. Kawhi Leonard occasionally looks like one of the top 5 players in the NBA. When the Clippers are off, they don't look like a playoff caliber team. When they're on, they look like they could win the whole damn thing. So they're going to be sitting here at 10th, 31-28 currently. Next up is the Sacramento Kings, 32-24. Most interesting offense in the NBA. Probably the best storyline of the NBA so far. Light the beam. The Kings are playing good basketball. 8 games over 500. And if you take those 4 or 5 games that they got screwed out of in the beginning of the season, they're almost a 40-win team at this point. So they're playing really good. Didn't make any major trades at the trade deadline, got like Kessler Edwards or whatever, but they're still going to be playing good basketball. Top 10 team here for the first time in 17 years. Mavericks, I'm going to leave at 8. There's a clear and noticeable difference when you go from Spencer Dinwiddie to Kyrie Irving on their team. They still run that heliocentric offense where either Luka or Kyrie has to do everything, but Kyrie is just a special player. If he stays right, if he stays healthy, and Luka Doncic actually wants to play along with him, Christian Wood stays healthy as well, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Green as well, that's a good starting lineup. Is it a championship caliber starting lineup? I just don't know yet. They're a pretty solid team at the top of this good, not great tier. And that is the end of this tier because we had the flawed contenders coming in, the Phoenix Suns. And I really should bring them higher. Problem is Kevin Durant is out. Problem is the Suns were my prediction for a team to completely fall off, which they were starting to before they made the trade. So I guess good on the Suns for making a change when they desperately needed it. The thing is, Kevin Durant looks ugly in a Suns jersey. We're just going to have to get used to that. I'm about 50-50 on his Nets jersey. He was okay on the Thunder jersey, okay in the Warriors. But the Suns and the Supersonics jerseys just look weird on Kevin Durant. Purple and orange is not going to work for the Slim Reaper. Also, there's just a little bit of irony with the Suns in that they jumped out to be the best team in the West, second best team in the NBA, and then they collapsed to injuries. Devin Booker got hurt and then got hurt again. Cliff Paul got injured. Mikal Bridges has been in and out of lineup, although he's been more healthy than everyone. Cam Johnson tore something in his knee, and he's been out basically the entire season. Then, finally, the second they get healthy, they start to win games, and then bam, they trade for Kevin Durant, who, by the way, is injured. So this team now lacks depth at the wing position. Hopefully they'll be able to pick somebody in the buyout market. Hopefully Kevin Durant comes back, and we're going to see what this lineup looks like. Cliff Paul, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and I guess Torrey Craig or Dario Saric going to be playing in that other spot. They're just going to need to catch and shoot and play some defense. This Suns team has the potential to be the best team in the NBA. The team that doesn't is the Grizzlies, who ever since Ja made that proclamation, whoo, have they been really bad. And I kind of wish the Grizzlies made a play at Kevin Durant, put together like a Dylan Brooks, maybe a Jaren Jackson Jr. package, and got Kevin Durant to put them over the top. Because Dylan Brooks has completely fallen off this season offensively, and it is hurting them a lot. Ja's shot has completely fallen off. He was steadily improving. His free throw was improving. His three-pointer was getting better. And now it's just like, oof. I think I looked it up. He's 32% from the three-point line this year. Yikes. And while Jaren Jackson Jr. is improving, man, I just don't see championship with this team as presently constructed. Most evident in the game they just played against the Boston Celtics. Next up here at number 5, no movement, is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I'm not going to be changing my message. I believe in this Cavaliers team. I believe that they have the capacity to make the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think they're a championship caliber team. I think they just need somebody else to grow and develop and become that 1A to Donovan Mitchell for this playoff squad. Evan Mobley's starting to show some signs, but I'm just not all in yet. At the same time, I just put them a tier above all of these other teams like the Mavericks and the Clippers and the Heat. Next is going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. They're coming down a spot, not by anything that they've done. They played pretty good basketball, but the team that jumped them on a 10 or something game win streak is the Milwaukee Bucks, and they're just starting to look dangerous. Picked up Jay Crowder for, I think, Jordan Nwora, Serge Ibaka and George Hill. Like, pretty good move on their part if Jay Crowder comes into NBA shape and is ready to play basketball, especially for this playoffs. And look, when Drew Holiday, Giannis, and Chris Middleton are healthy, this is legitimately a top 4, top 3 team in the NBA. The Bucks are mean. There isn't one singular superpower in the NBA where you go, yeah, they got LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh. They're going to win everything. This NBA is wide open, and the Bucks are prime for taking that spot. Number 2 is the Denver Nuggets. No change for them. They've just been steady, consistent, playing damn good basketball. Got rid of Bones Highland. Don't know how I feel about that, but they did bring in Reggie Jackson. So I guess overall that's an upgrade for their second unit. Jamal Murray playing great. Aaron Gordon trying to be an all-star. He's not going to be. And then who's the other guy? Michael Porter Jr. Man, he needs to play better basketball. And that is the end of this non-Boston Celtics tier because there's one team head and shoulders still above the rest record-wise, statistically. First team to 40 wins with the Phil Jackson 40-20 rule. The Boston Celtics are still the best team in the NBA. That's going to do it for me. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I'll catch you in the next one.